If you've ever stripped the screw on a firearm, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I know I've done it and I've been very, very, very sad. Like and comment. Comment section is always crazy. It's Mad Max down there. It's what makes these videos famous. Guys, get into Gun Mag Warehouse. They support the channel. They get support us monetarily. Buy the gun mags from them. Discount code Garand. That goes for LAX ammo as well to get that training in. Guys, today we're going to be talking about Mercon optics. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I feel like I'm one of the first guys to do a review on these. And we're going to be talking about the Mark 1 optic. So the Mark 1 optic is a 1 to 6 power, low power variable optic. So why low power variables? Well, they're kind of taking over in certain kind of sections of the firearm world because they're really versatile. You can go anywhere from 1x, and it's almost a true 1x, not quite as good as a red dot because of things like eye relief and that type of stuff, all the way to 6 power, where you can, stretch the limbs on your Gucci AR-15, all that kind of thing. So they're definitely they're becoming kind of a standard among kind of the AR-15 M4 type of world. So you have a lot of companies coming out with them right now. So let's talk about this one. So the Mercon Optics Mark 1 was given to me. So my full disclosure thing, as usual. So this is an early pre-production model, and so the ano or whatever it was wasn't quite there. It's supposed to be more of a gray. Kind of ended up being like an off purple, like kind of like the Vortex, but like a little bit more purple. But rest assured that the actual production one is kind of a grayish color. They gave this to me along with 5,000 rounds of ammo to test and run this optic on a AR-15 M4, whatever. So I've done that, and I thought I would give you guys my thoughts on how this optic has gone. Now, low power variables have kind of become the bread and butter of this channel. And it's kind of come to a point in technology-wise and manufacturing-wise where a lot of these optics are kind of starting to feel a little bit similar. So I'll talk about kind of where this thing is similar to a lot of the optics, but I'm trying not to rehash a lot of the things that I've already said about other low power variable optics. But in any case, before we get into it, I do want to make a plug for my very good buddy, and I will point out that he is a friend, so does that influence what I'm saying? Hopefully not, but I am using a ScalarWorks mount. I do think that they are currently the best, among the best mounts for low power variable optics on the market currently. The guys, are really good as well, but these ones allow you to auto level your scope, which is super cool. It's an awesome feature because I hate leveling my scope, and it just makes everything that much easier. When you have a level scope, that makes your zero that much better. Anyhow, the Mercon Mark 1. So first off, we'll do pros and cons. So to start off with, the glass is Japanese glass, like pretty much any other low power variable optic out there, and it's excellent. It's very comparable to the Vortex Razor HD Gen 2. Very clear. What kind of sets some of the higher price optics apart from something like a primary arms is the fact that at 6x, it's much more easy to resolve your target and fine detail and get a lot more light transmission than say like a really cheap one like a primary arms. Not that the primary arms are bad. In fact, I really do like them, but just understand that when you're paying like a higher price, like they aren't just as good. There is a significant difference between the two. So the Mercon Optic and the Vortex are both have excellent glass quality. So I haven't had any issues there, and I've been very happy and pleased with the glass quality on the Mercon. I don't have any type of light bending or anything like that. Light transmission is good, so they did a great job there. Japanese glass, awesome. Eye relief. So eye relief is always kind of the big thing. So the Vortex Razor, for me, is the gold standard. Not because it's the best out there, but because it does a lot of things very well. It has good illumination, good glass quality, good eye relief. It's very tough. It's not the best, but again, it's that jack of all trades. So in certain aspects, other low power variable optics beat out the Vortex, and where the Mercon optic, the Mercon Mark 1 kind of shines is in eye relief. It's very similar to the Voodoo in the fact that it has a really long eye relief, around 3.5 inches, but I found I can easily push that to 4. Why that's good is when you're shooting some weird angles, especially like under cars, around barricades, when you're on your back, on your side, that type of thing, it can be very tough to get a good sight picture through a low power variable optic. So a good eye relief is absolutely necessary. So I do find it easier to shoot in those odd positions with the Mercon versus the Vortex. Not to say that the Vortex is bad, but just that this is a newer optic utilizing, I would assume, newer production techniques, and because of that, the eye relief is pretty good. So good on Mercon with the Mark 1 for that. It works very well. Again, very comparable to the Voodoo. As far as the adjustment is concerned, it is easier to use than the Vortex, which is famously stiff, and I know there are techniques to make it easier to rotate. So it does come with like a little hump to kind of work as like a scope lever. It's not amazing, but it works. There does seem to be the option, it does seem to be removable, so I imagine that they'll probably add in extended options at some point that will make it more like an actual lever. That was one thing that I really liked about the EOTech Voodoo, is it had an actual lever that you could screw into the body that came out. This seems to be kind of going along the same concept, it just didn't ship with it. So I am hoping that they come up with that at some point, because I really do prefer a scope lever on my optic, so I can easily go from that 1 to that 6 instead of like sitting there and like twisting this thing back and forth. Twist, adjust smoothly, all that kind of stuff. It is a second focal plane. That means that the reticle size is constant throughout the magnification level, which means that your dope is pretty much only good at 1 magnification. That's not to say that at 1x like you're shooting all over the place, but rather to say when you get your bullet drop and you're kind of getting all that together at 6x, that's what it's going to be good at. If you're at like 4.5, you're going to be slightly off as compared to other optics, which are first focal plane, like the EOTech Voodoo or others, that allow you to kind of zoom in on the reticle and make it bigger, or have a second smaller reticle that's etched into the glass. So I really don't have a problem with second focal plane. I actually do like it. That's what the Vortex has, which is one of my preferred low power variable optics. As far as zeroing, this was really easy to zero. This was one thing I really liked about the Mark 1, was that after you unscrewed the caps, the clicks are extremely positive. So you press it in and then you can easily adjust it. Very positive, very easy, and then you can push it out. That way it spins freely and is no longer adjusting the zero. So that worked very well for me. It was very easy and very simple to adjust this. I hate when some of those adjust knobs are like super spongy and you're like, did I click it? Did I not? They are 0.5 mils as far as the adjustments. So not like, it's about pretty standard for a low power variable optic, and especially with the AR-15, that's more than enough. So no issues there. Okay, one of the coolest things about this optic is when I reviewed the EOTech Voodoo, I was like, okay, this is one of like the lightest optics out there, about 19.5 ounces. But the Mark 1, due to a couple kind of production changes that Mercon has made, this is actually a very lightweight optic. It weighs around 18.5 ounces, which is really light, very surprising. Compare that to like the Vortex Razor, which is 25.2. This thing is a beast. This thing is also durable as hell. So this is currently, as far as I know, durability-wise, probably one of the lighter optics out there, if not the lightest. So good on Mercon with the Mark 1 for that. I know that there are lighter low power variables like the primary arms, but are they as durable or made for a duty type role? I'm not sure. Pretty sure that this one's the lightest, among the lightest ones out there. As far as durability is concerned, that's something that's harder to gauge, because that's something that comes with time in country, time serving in law enforcement, in the military, and that's not something that I can make a judgment on as one reviewer. And that's kind of the tough thing about reviewing, being one of the first guys to kind of get hands-on with an optic. Has it held zero as I've dropped on the ground and bumped it into cars? Yeah, those are informal tests. Haven't done like any specific things where I'm like throwing it off like a 2-story roof or anything like that. That will be coming soon. But it seems to me that this optic is perfectly reliable and tough. It was designed in the Pacific Northwest, which of course is near and dear to my heart, being a Pacific Northwesterner myself. So it has done really well in the rain out here in the Washington area, and no issues there. It seems to be very well weatherproofed. Again, I'm hesitant to say how tough it is. Tough enough for me so far. Is it going to be as tough as like the Vortex Razor? Time will tell. Time will tell when it comes to that, and we'll definitely do an update on this optic as more experience is had on it. Okay, warranty, awesome warranty on this. It's pretty much just like this thing's gonna last forever, so no problem there. They're gonna back their product. It does come with a free mount. Of course, I didn't use a free mount. I used the Scalar Works because I prefer to have those super Gucci mounts. But their mount that it comes with is free and comes with the price of the optic, and it's pretty good actually. So cool. I'm glad that they did that. It's sometimes for some people they like to kind of have everything come in one package. And that's kind of what's nice about the Mark 1 is that you get a super light, pretty durable, great glass optic for about $899 with a mount. That's a really good price compared to like the EOTech Voodoo, which is around like $1,100 or $1,200, and the Vortex Razor, which is $13 to $15, depending on the model and sales and all that type of stuff. So as of this writing, this is probably one of the cheaper, good, low power variable optics out there. Now, we've hit pros. Now, there are some cons with this optic. Everything is not, sunshine and rainbows when it comes to this thing. So first off, I'm trying to think of a nice way to say this. The illumination sucks. It's straight up terrible. So illumination is kind of a point that maybe I'm too obsessed with, and maybe I'm being unfair to this optic, but on a low power variable optic, I do rely on a good illumination. By illumination, I mean that red dot to be able to make fast target acquisition at 1x. So the illumination on this is pretty bad. I'm pretty much not seeing it even in low light until I'm getting into about the highest setting, which is, if I'm not mistaken, at 11. Yes, it is at 11. So it has on off between each, so that it is good. But that being said, at 11, the brightness level of this is about equal to the Vortex Razor when it's at a brightness setting of approximately 4. Of course, that's to my untrained eye, but that's insanity. That's pretty crazy that it's so dim. And not just that, but at 4, the Vortex Razor is doing fine. It has a very clean, very crisp dot that's easy to see. Compare that to the Merkon Mark 1, and that dot is very tiny, which I can understand can be good for precision work, but it has a lot of light bleed at 4. So with the Vortex at 4, at the 4 setting, I can easily use it indoors. There is no setting that works very well indoors with the Mark 1. I just get a lot of light bleed to get to bright enough to where I can use this in a reflexive setting. So because of that, I'm not a huge fan of it. Now, I will be the first to admit that there's a possibility that this illumination was not made for short range engagements. It was rather made for illumination for low light at long range. And if that's the case, it's okay. It's not great. My point is, when you have optics like the Vortex Razor, or even the primary arms that have pretty good illumination, I feel like the Mark 1 should have good illumination given its price point between the two. It should have better than what it has currently. One thing that I really liked about the Vortex Razor was that when you got to the setting that you wanted, you could lock it. That way it couldn't turn on its own. That's not so much the case with the Mark 1. Again, it's stiff, so you're not gonna accidentally bump it over, but I kind of like that ultimate reliability of locking into place on the Vortex Razor where I know that thing's not gonna move. Nonetheless, it's probably just a pet peeve when it comes to me just nitpicking on this particular op. My other problem with it was the scope lever. Of course, that's been a problem with literally every low power variable optic that I've talked about. Just have one that just ships with it. Good God, stop doing this weird stuff with your scope levers. Just please ship with them, please. Okay, this isn't a pro or a con when it comes to this optic, but the reticle. So the reticle is kind of a personal choice on a lot of these low power variable optics. I like the JM reticle, the JM1 reticle on the Vortex, on the Optic Voodoo. I like just the crosshair reticle. On this particular one, it's a very interesting kind of reticle. You have your bullet drop, you have a little bit of windage, and you have kind of this U shape with a black dot in the center. The lines are thick enough that you don't lose it in targets. Again, with the illumination, it works okay, but the reticle is pretty bare bones, but it works. It works for a lot of situations, and it's not too cluttered or anything like that. So I do kind of like it. That being said, I still prefer optimized reticles like the ACSS from Primary Arms or something along those lines. So this doesn't have it. So is that a con? It depends on what you're doing. I think for most applications, the reticle that this has is going to be more than adequate. But again, that's neither a pro nor a con. It just depends on kind of what you want. So we've talked about a lot of things when it comes to the Merkon Mark 1. Here's kind of what it comes down to. Super tough, a very lightweight optic at a great price. However, that suffers when it comes to the red dot, the illumination of the reticle. It's not great. I don't like it at all. So is this going to be great for you? Is this going to be a good optic for you? It depends. On what you need. Is that red dot super important to you on a low power variable optic? And I'm going to be honest and say that it's probably not. It's probably not that big of a deal for me either. I'm perfectly capable of using it. I just prefer to have that red dot in my field of view and to have a good illuminated reticle. So if that's not that big of a deal, then this is a really good optic for you. If you're super focused on having a super brain burrowing red dot in your low power variable optic, probably Vortex Razor is for you. If not, this is a really good option because, again, this is a great price and it has a great glass. It has great reticle. It's very usable. So again, this would be a very good option. It's just going to depend on what you do. And again, I know I say that a lot, but it's true. I can't make these decisions for you. It's going to depend on what you're doing. Now, as far as duty use, is this cleared for police and military duty use? So their website says it's shockproof, waterproof. It can take all the beatings and damages, and I agree with that from what I've seen so far. But again, I just don't know yet because there hasn't been enough data out there from people using these yet. I will say, in my experience, it is plenty tough. So I would say cautiously that this is a very tough optic and will likely hold up for you guys. I would love to hear your experiences with this optic. Again, this is a very new optic out there, but in my opinion, cheap, lightweight, durable, good glass, crappy illumination. Make your decision and kind of go from there. Guys, you're going to be okay with this optic if you don't train. So get training, guys. Cogworks, Bear Solutions, Heliostrategic, Esoteric. I'm actually going to be going to 2 of those classes in the next couple of weeks. So if you're there, I'll see you there. If not, then I'm sure I'll see you at a future class. Get out there, get training, guys. That's what matters. Before we kind of go, I'm sure you guys will ask about the firearm itself. So the rifle is a BCM 12.5 MCMR upper. I do love the 12.5. It's got a PEC 15 with an Arisaka 600 series light with a Surefire dual pressure pad. I am running a Radian ADAC lower, which is among, in my opinion, the best lowers out there right now. Magpul mags, and then of course B5 stock with Faro Concepts sling and AR gold trigger and Radian charging handle. So that is my setup. And besides that, guys, I really don't have a whole lot else for you. So you guys can kind of go. You guys can go. So guys, there are going to be tough times in your life, and that can be rough. What I want to point out to you guys is there are healthy ways to handle it. Healthy ways to handle it are to understand it and to feel it and that type of stuff. Because again, you do have to have the sadness to know kind of the good in your life. If you're just psychotically happy 100% of the time, I'm a little wary of you. Just whatever you do, guys, I want to point out to not turn to substance abuse to control that sadness in your life. It's not going to help at all. It's going to make things 1,000 times worse, and maybe it'll feel better at the time, but ultimately it's going to make your life much worse. Take it from me, not that I've been in that situation, but I've had a lot of friends that has negatively affected their lives or has caused them to end their life. And so that's kind of an important topic to me. So I know it kind of gets heavy every once in a while, but take care of yourselves, guys. I know it can get bad at times, but we're here for you. Our retarded community. That's not a PC word. Me. So stick with us. There's a lot of cool things to do in life, and keep your chin up. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and I've got nothing else. Go enjoy the weather before it gets terrible. And then enjoy it more because there's a ton to do in the winter.